Hello, it's Kirk from The Next Level Now. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about Newton's laws of physics, diet, health, and well-being. And you may be wondering, how in the world is he going to tie all of those things together? Bear with me, we'll get there. So, as a young guy, late elementary school, early junior high, as science classes started to become a lot more interesting, one of my favorites, one of the things that got me very intrigued by science, was learning of Newton's 3 laws of physics. A body at rest tends to stay at rest until it's acted upon by an outside force, Law 1. A body in motion tends to stay in motion until it's acted upon by an outside force, Law 2. And for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, Law 3. And one of the things that I've discovered through life is that Newton's laws of physics are pretty doggone deep. They apply to a lot more than what you and I might on the surface think. For example, as a young man, I tended to be pretty stinking lazy. I didn't like to do too much. I looked for a way to get out of it. And I've told you before, my dad would always tell me that I was half-assed, meaning that I thought he meant that I couldn't run, but he was talking about my commitment levels. I was at rest. I was the body at rest, and I wouldn't move or do anything until I was acted upon by an outside force who ended up being my dad. And I learned to move, and I learned to do. As I got a little older and I got married and had a grandchild, and that was my new reacquaintance with Newton's second law. As my grandson was a toddler and a young fellow running through the house, a body in motion tends to stay in motion unless it's acted upon by an outside force. And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. Well, when we look at our health, when we look at our well-being, when we look at our emotional states, when we look at our diet, this third law comes into play. And it comes in a very, very big way. And allow me to show you what I mean. In America today, our diet is very, very high on the carbohydrate end. We kind of stay a little bit away from the proteins in comparison, and we stay away from the fats in comparison. We're very heavy on the carbohydrates. And we're particularly heavy on the high glycemic index carbohydrates, the sugars, soda pops, ice creams, cakes, cookies, those types of things. And really, truly, those things can lead to a problem. We have recently flipped the food pyramid over, and we're learning now that actually we should be doing the opposite. We should be dealing more with maybe some more proteins, maybe some more low glycemic index carbs, but we don't want to stay with those high glycemic index carbs that we were told for so long were so good for us. The reason those things were told that way is because they're very easy to process, they're very cheap to process, they have a shelf life of darn near infinity. When was the last time you saw a Twinkie go bad? And they are very, very colorful. They're attractive to go by. My grandson loves white bread, and the loaf of white bread can sit in the kitchen for probably 2 weeks, and that bread's still white, still spongy, still soft, looks beautiful. When did you last time you saw grandma's bread sit for more than 3 days without growing fur? We're eating things that are really, truly not the best for us. And why are these carbohydrates not the best? Because we're told that our system runs on glucose, a carbohydrate. And it does. Our system does run on glucose. But that glucose is only needed for so much, and then we keep adding more to the bloodstream, more to the bloodstream, more to the bloodstream. And what happens? We get an overload of that glucose, and when we get that overload, your body, which is very conservative, says, I need a place to put it. So it starts looking for Ziploc bags, which is the function of a fat cell. You open the fat cell up, stuff some glucose in there, seal it up, and there you go. It's out of the bloodstream. You see, if too much glucose stays in that bloodstream, your blood changes its chemical attributes a little bit. It starts to become a little more acid. And when it becomes acid, it starts to eat away and destroy things like ligaments, tendons, muscles, blood vessels, gut lining, things like that. Pretty important things. They start to get weak. They start to become soft and gummy and, liable to break. And we keep eating those high glycemic, those terrible, terrible sugars, and we keep stuffing the fat cells full. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Eat the carbs, get fat. Eat the carbs, start destroying your tissue. As you start to gain more and more weight, you put it on around your belly, visceral fat. And that visceral fat, as it starts to build up, is responsible for heart attacks. You have a 45% higher chance of having a heart attack if you have a larger waist. You start to be able to lose some of your immune system. It starts to deteriorate. Just all kinds of various strokes, bad things happen because we have this visceral fat. But we continue to eat the bad stuff. For every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and we're not paying attention to it. And as that goes on, we start to stretch out the ligaments in the foot because we've started to put on all that weight, and your feet flatten out, and your knees roll in. And as your knees roll in, and you can't walk right because now you can't swing your feet through on a normal walking pattern, you flare your feet out to the sides and you walk like a penguin. And when you do that, you start to tighten up the muscles in the hip, which drives the ball of the hip into the socket, and we start to deteriorate that joint. That acid in the blood starts to increase the amount of acidity in that area, and it starts to hasten the decomposition of those joints. Your belly gets bigger. You start to lean forward, and as you lean forward, you don't want to fall, so you lean back and you squish the tissues in your low back, tightening the muscles, squeezing on the nerves, causing leg pain, causing low back pain. You don't want to fall backwards, so now you slump forward at the chest, and you compress your lungs and you compress your heart. You don't get as much oxygen, and you're not getting as much blood flow, which increases the acid in the blood, which then leads to things like strokes and heart attacks and congestive heart failures. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Now, people would come to me as a chiropractor and say, "Hey, doc, I'm hurting in that low back. Can you fix me?" And I would. I'd adjust that vertebra, and they'd feel good. They'd get that blast of dopamine in their brain, which in the pleasure center feels good. They'd get that serotonin and say, "Man, that feels great, doc. I'm good to go. I'll see you later." And they wouldn't follow. But what they didn't understand by not following up was that I had treated a symptom, a vertebral misalignment. I hadn't treated the cause. The cause was still going on because they were still continuing to do those bad habits. And those bad habits were causing them to be on that slippery slope to a complete deconditioning of the body. This left go long enough has very, very grim outcomes. So my point in telling you all of this is that yes, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. I also want to let you know that you are where you are because you have chosen to be there. Sometimes that's painful, but you can choose to be someplace else. And it's not an instant answer. It's not overnight. It takes work. It takes time. But if you are interested in things like this, if you are interested in learning how to break that cycle, if you're learning how to get out of that discomfort and pain, which if you have for a long enough time is going to lead you to a point where you're actually depressed, please let me know. DM me right here on Facebook. Call the office 724-285-9093. You can email me at bacdoc.kw@gmail.com. Let me know that you're interested in having a conversation as to what we can do to help you with this. Because this is what we're doing at the Next Level Now. We're helping you overcome this cycle. We're helping you break free of the bad chain of events that we've all set in place because of Newton's third law. It's amazing how those physics laws come around and bite you. So, hey, by the way, please go over to the Next Level Now YouTube channel. Check out these videos. Go to the Next Level Now Facebook page. Check that out. Tamika Thomas, Facebook. Check her stuff out. It's often awesome. Sorry. I have a tendency to be more on the science end. That's where I like to live. But you can follow me here. Like, follow, share. Please tell people about what we're doing here. We're trying so hard to help you reach that next level now. Bye-bye.